Of the day, put your hands together for the Diablo III lore panel.
What's up, everybody? I guess if it hasn't been announced, welcome to day 2. It's very good to see y'all up and alive this morning. Hi. So guys, it's kind of interesting, 15 years of Diablo, and at least something like 7 years of BlizzCon. We've actually never had just a straight lore panel before, so this should be really cool. We've got some absolute badasses on the stage today. Guys, this is Leonard Boyarsky. He is our senior world designer on D3. Kevin Martins is our lead content designer, and we've been tag teaming now, what seems for 100 years, on Diablo 3. We're going to riff a little bit on some new ideas, talk a little bit about Book of Cain and some of the history we've been trying to put together, and then we'll open it up for Q&A around the midpoint. I'm sure you guys have a lot of questions. Hell, we do too. So as we get started here, I wanted to tell you guys, many of you know we've been doing this Book of Cain thing. Do we talk about it a little later in this presentation? It's up to me. We'll talk about it right now. So we put together this thing called Book of Cain because, you know, the past number of years as we've been developing the story for Diablo 3, it demanded that we kind of relook at the world and relook at, you know, kind of the way history flowed. The Diablo series was developed between 2 different companies, probably something like 8 different fiction writers, you know, across manuals, you know, in the game scripts. And to be totally honest with you, it was a bit of a mess. And as we started really getting deep into D3, where like new ideas were coming out and kind of new looks at the world were taking shape that were really, really cool. And so we started to really look at the history and tighten up and trim and kind of relook at how these ideas stack. So, you know, so you get like the most maximum tight and smartly built, you know, continuity, you know, game continuity. So, and that really begat the Book of Cain. You know, as we kind of got all these ideas together, you know, this is pretty badass. Maybe we can, you know, put this in a cover and give it to people. So I just want to say up front, we get this on the Warcraft and StarCraft fronts all the time, is, you know, when you start tweaking things and, you know, purposefully retconning things, you know, it can get a little emotional. You know, people like to know what they know and like to count on, you know, the lore that they've been following for years. So I just wanted to say up front, especially in the Q&A part, I'm sure you guys are going to have a lot of questions for things. I know like previews for Book of Cain went up last night, and some things look a little different than they've looked for years. But all by design, no real major world changes or anything like that, by the way. This all sounds very gnarly, but just want to say up front, like we've been going back through history and trying to tighten it up and make it as smart as we can make it. So wanted to say that up front. As we get going here, I want to talk a little bit about the eternal conflict. As I roll right into that, we want to kind of debut kind of a kit of ideas that we've been building into Diablo for a while, but we haven't really evidenced in the game series so far. But I thought it'd be fun for you guys to see a little bit of the angels in the Diablo universe, right? We don't talk about them a whole lot. The only character you guys have seen consistently is Tyrael. So to kind of set up a little discussion about them, the idea is the Diablo universe is predicated on an eternal conflict. We have the high heavens and the burning hells. And one of these modified ideas that we've come up with, that we've been running with for the past couple years in development, is that what are heaven and hell actually fighting about? What are they doing, right? We kind of had this idea that, I don't know how to explain Anu and the dragon, right? Like, there's a mythic cycle we came up with of like the creation of the universe, right? That the ultimate manifestations of good and evil fought at the beginning of time and pretty much wiped each other out in kind of like a Big Bang kind of explosion, right? So part of the good guy was this kind of massive crystal, right? And we call it the Eye of Anu, right? It is the World Stone, right? You know, kind of spinning out in the heart of the universe itself. And legend holds, right, that with the World Stone, legend holds, like I'm making it up as I go, that the World Stone can be used, it's called the World Stone, to build worlds without end. It's essentially, you know, the heart of, you know, this supreme deity, right, that, you know, is a force of creation. So with this thing, it's theorized that you can build worlds without end. And ultimately, heaven, the high heavens and the burning hells pretty much are also evidences of these first two great, powers of the universe. So as the high heavens and the burning hells, as the angels and demons kind of become aware of each other, they start fighting over this world stone, because whoever controls it, right, can pretty much shape reality to their whim. So the idea that we built is, in the center of the universe, where this world stone is, the forces of heaven and hell have been fighting there. We call that place Pandemonium. You guys will be familiar with the Pandemonium Fortress, from different, I think we had a look at it in...
Yeah, it was in Diablo II.
Diablo II.
And at that point, the angels controlled it, and it was sort of their forward operating base
Right.
at the gates of hell. So.
Right. And the idea is that over the aeons, right, since the dawn of time, heaven and hell have been fighting. Different sides have held it for different lengths of time. For this 10,000-year span, hell's owned it. For this next, 30,000-year span, heaven owned it. So its architecture is kind of shaped relative to both of those cultures, kind of like a Jerusalem kind of thing, right? Like different occupying forces have controlled this thing over time.
I should say it's also way bigger than what you guys have seen in the game. There's a lot more to it that we've never shown or talked about.
And the idea is that the Pandemonium Fortress is kind of built around the World Stone, right? And kind of built to contain it, and it certainly provides us with a nice little battleground for these forces to clash over. As you move forward in time, the character of Inarius, right, started to chafe at this giant battle. He didn't want to play ball anymore. He thought that this unending eternal conflict was just ridiculous. He's like, I'm out, I'm done. He just kind of has a total break. And long story short, he conscripts like-minded angels and even stranger like-minded demons, like the demoness Lilith. And they pull off, the Ocean's 11 maneuver. They actually wind up stealing the World Stone from the heart of Pandemonium. Technically, it's explain, it's still right there, right? The World Stone exists at the heart of creation, but somehow they dimensionally veiled it, right? They kind of blinked it out into a dimensional pocket that heaven and hell could not see. You can imagine what that would do to the eternal conflict. Suddenly the thing we're fighting over, the power of creation itself, zoop, is gone. So that complicated things for heaven and hell. What do we fight over now? Where the World Stone went is in the dimension of sanctuary. With this power of creation, Inarius and his goofy friends forged for themselves a paradise, a garden sanctuary, right, where they could do their hippie stuff and, run around naked, have fun, chase bunnies. And there, these renegade angels and demons began to get it on. They had babies. They had scary, mighty, supernatural babies called the Nephilim. Long story shorter, over time, these Nephilim, long story, their bloodlines begin to diminish, their powers begin to diminish because they're very, very scary, mighty monsters, something that was never planned for in creation. Hybrids of both angelic and demonic power. What am I doing? This is weird. Grabbing air. Sorry. Hold me. The hell were we talking about? So the Nephilim ultimately diminish and become us, become men, and the idea, and women, and the idea is that locked within mortal genetic code, right, is the power of gods, right, far beyond angels and demons, right? The thing that scares the living hell out of heaven and hell is the fact that we are the potential to be far mightier than they. Some of these ideas you guys might have seen in the Sin War trilogy that we put out a number of years ago with Richard Knack. We were kind of riffing in this space and trying to construct a trilogy that would sing to some of this stuff. But if you guys wind up checking out the Book of Cain, we definitely get into all this stuff and show the very linear chain of events that really produced Sanctuary. So having said all that, let's get into this. So angels, we never talk about them, right? You guys might have heard a few names before, like Tyrael, Isual, Inarius, this angel that went nuts and stole the World Stone and made a world for us to live in. As we were developing Diablo III, we thought it'd be cool to kind of chase down these angels, right? Just kind of, hey, who are these guys? What's going on? We always deal with the Lords of Hell. We know exactly who these 7 yahoos are. Why not just kind of riff and hook ideas for the other side of the argument? So what we jammed up long ago was the Angelus Council, right? The council of 5 archangels that pretty much rule and administrate over the high heavens, right? They are the direct opposite counterpart to the Lords of Hell. Much like the Lords of Hell, who each have their own sphere of influence, like, the Lord of Terror, hate and destruction. The Angelus Council also have very specific spheres of influence that pretty much define who they are and what their function is in the high heavens. As we're rolling through, Doctor, thank you. You guys have seen Tyrael before. Tyrael is the Archangel of Justice. And what's kind of cool about the aeons of history of Diablo before the creation of Sanctuary, I think Tyrael is a fairly anal retentive dude, right? He's about order, he's about justice, he's about the system of how things work, very unbending, very rigid kind of guy. And what's cool about the dawn of mankind, the creation of Sanctuary, one day, Tyrael finds out that, that this world exists and there's people running around like, holy cow. The result of the Sin War, whereby a hero, a Nephilim hero named Odyssean kind of achieves ultimate power. He's on the verge of achieving his just maximum Nephilim, power, which scares the living, I gotta stop doing the pun, which scares heaven and hell. Odyssean gives of himself. He pretty much sacrifices himself. Instead of attaining godhood, he chooses his humanity at the end and pretty much dies in an attempt to kind of reset things in the world. Affected by Odyssean's sacrifice, Tyrael, this rigid Archangel of Justice, goes, wow, right? These mortals, while they scare everybody else, have such capacity, Peter Brady had such capacity for selflessness and honor and heroism that Tyrael really begins to change. It really begins to kind of drop the whole, systemic thinking and kind of legalistic worldview. And really, that's why he kind of becomes the maverick of heaven. It's interesting that the Archangel of Justice pretty much becomes the outlaw of the Angelus Council. And we see through history, time and time again, he has intervened on behalf of mankind because he believes that we have some great innate worth, and which is essentially why he is our favorite angel, right? Tyrael is, he's the man. You guys dig on that statue over there? How crazy is that? So badass. The next archangel is Ariel, the Archangel of Hope. Ariel is, as you'd expect, the most upbeat of the Angelus Council. She's serious as a heart attack, infinitely wise, infinitely hopeful. She really works as, if this group was a player group, she's the cleric, right? With her power and with her kind of cord of hope, it's kind of this item that she wears that can either bestow blessings or kind of be used as this kind of cool, energy ribbon. Ariel really works as the heart of the group. She holds them all together. You might assume that these archangels in this family is very dysfunctional. They don't always get along really well. Even though they are wonderful, angelic people, they typically have their heads up their asses, and Ariel really tends to be the grounding force amongst them. The next archangel we want to talk about is Malthael. He's an interesting character, and we're really still kind of chasing down his storyline. But the idea with Malthael is that he's the Archangel of Wisdom, and from time immemorial, he's really served as the conciliary to the Angelus Council, the kind of the voice of reason, and the guy that has when he speaks up with his soft little voice, like everybody listens, right? He's usually right, which I'm sure pisses everybody else off. One of the interesting things in the history we've devised is at the point that Inarius and his buddies hijacked the World Stone, the heart of creation, to some degree Malthael flipped out, right? This guy that's constantly thinking about the universe and the truth of reality, suddenly the heart of reality blinks out, right? Again, it's sanctuaries being created. These guys don't know where it went. And it kind of fries his brain a little bit. So kind of over time, Malthael kind of begins to darken a little bit. We're still kind of working out his story, but interesting transition. The Angel of Wisdom has become something more like a very grim character, right? Thus the scythes and stuff. Malthael's definitely got a big part to play in the ongoing story of the Diablo universe. The next archangel we want to talk about is Imperius, the Archangel of Valor. Imperius is probably the biggest ass kicker in Diablo continuity. Well, until you guys get your hands on the game, that is. Imperius is one of the funnest new characters we've developed. This guy is pretty much, he is very commanding. He's just absolute badass in combat. He lives to tool out demons. He's been fighting since the dawn of time. He's killed, billions and billions of demons, and he's real good at it. And he tends to be a very loud voice on the council. You can imagine sometimes he almost kind of bullies things to get his way. The dangers for someone like Imperius is that valor, can so often, kind of turn to pride. And for that reason, Imperius and Tyrael kind of go at it from time to time, right? They're kind of the two older brothers, and they kind of get under each other's skin often, right? They have very different views on things like the nature of creation, things like should mankind have a right to exist, or should they be nuked entirely? They don't necessarily agree on those lines. So again, Imperius is just one of the coolest new characters we've developed. And as we hit the last guy, this is Ethereal, the Archangel of Fate, the great lore keeper of the high heavens. This guy can't literally tell the future as such, but he sees the various strands of possibility that weave into the future. He's a guy of kind of vast knowledge. He kind of rarely speaks, but he's definitely this guy that they go to in times of crisis to try and figure out, should we go left, should we go right? An interesting thing about Ethereal is that while in the universe out there, he's pretty much got things dialed in. Since the World Stone was stolen and Sanctuary created, I think this is true. I may just get in trouble. All right. Just wanted to double check.
First gets it right.
Stuck my foot in my mouth. He can't see mortals. Mortals were not meant to exist, right? So he cannot see the skeins of our destiny, right? And that weirds him out. And by extension, it weirds the other angels out too. Mortals are just the Gordian knot that these guys have no answer for, right? We vex them. We vex them highly. So guys, that's a kind of quick sketch look at the Angerus Council. It'll kind of be interesting to see here as the Diablo franchise gets moving here, how these guys may or may not play out. But we had a lot of fun developing them. So now I'm going to hand it off to Leonard, who's going to tell us a little bit about the bad guys.
That's okay. Thanks. All right, let's talk about the Lords of the Burning Hells. I got this. Originally, the Burning Hells were ruled by the three primevals, Diablo, Mephisto, and Baal. And subordinate to them were the lesser evils, Belial, Azmodan, Duriel, and Andariel. And as Chris has already mentioned, from the beginning of time, they were involved with the high heavens in the eternal conflict, basically a war to see who would hold sway over all of creation. And this went on until the discovery of the existence of Sanctuary. Once again, as Chris has mentioned, this was created by renegade angels and demons. So this was something new in all of the history of time, something that both angels and demons had a stake in, that they were responsible for. And this led to a surprising development. They called a truce in the eternal conflict. But even more than a truce, they agreed to a non-interference pact. They said that neither side would interfere with the development of mankind on Sanctuary. Now, of course, the primevals, being the primevals, had no intention of living up to their end of this bargain. They theorized that mankind, left to their own devices, would drift over to the side of darkness easily enough, of course with a little bit of a push here and a shove there, provided by the primevals themselves. This didn't sit well with the lesser evils, especially Belial and Azmodan, and they made their displeasure known by starting a civil war in hell. Now, this civil war went on for quite a while, until even the minions and armies of the primevals turned on them. And the primevals were overwhelmed by the sheer numbers, and they lost this civil war. This led to them being exiled to Sanctuary in what is known as the Dark Exile, and this in turn led to the events of Diablo 1 and 2, where they were hunted down and captured by the Horadrim. And if you all recall, in Diablo 1 and 2, they escaped their imprisonment, and it's your job to hunt them down again and destroy them. But you don't only destroy the primevals in those games, you also destroy Andariel and Duriel. So for those of you keeping track at home, that means that there are two Lords of Hell unaccounted for. So the first Lord of Hell that you meet in Diablo 3 is Belial. He's the Lord of Lies. He is a master of subterfuge and deception. He's very insidious. But he doesn't like to get his own hands dirty. He likes to use underlings for that purpose. This is Magda. She's a witch. She leads the coven. It was filled with dark cultists who have pledged their life to the service of Belial. They are the antagonists that you meet for the first good portion of the game before you ever run into Belial, and they're a lot of fun to deal with. Also on Belial's payroll are these snake demons, in keeping with the theme of deception. That is what Belial is all about. These guys can disguise themselves as human beings, so you'll never know when you're dealing with them or when they're going to turn into demons and attack you. Now, as far as Belial himself, he's all about corruption from within. He's not an in-your-face kind of guy. He likes to manipulate his opponents. He likes to play on their fears and mistrust to turn them against each other. And he somehow used these techniques to take over the most important trade city in the world, CALDEUM. He's also sent his cultists, the Coven, and the snake demons out into the borderlands surrounding CALDEUM, and they've driven thousands of refugees into the outskirts of CALDEUM. But the city has been closed, so they have this refugee crisis. There's starvation, there's disease, and you need to figure out how Belial has accomplished this, how he has taken control of the city, and what his plans are before all these people die. Moving on, we get to Azmodan, the Lord of Sin. Now, Azmodan, as the Lord of Sin, has as his lieutenants the 7 deadly sins. In our game, you're only going to meet 2 of them. And the first one we're not going to talk about today. You're going to have to play the game to find out who that is. But the second one is Sedea, the Maiden of Lust. Now, some of you may recall that 2 years ago, at BlizzCon, the costume contest winner was dressed as the Maiden of Lust, who at the time was known as the Mistress of Pain. It's a funny story. She was cut from the game, actually. She wasn't even in the game at that point. We had had the concept made for her, and we had kind of tossed her aside, said, you know, she's cool, but we really don't have a place for her. But once we saw the costume contest winner, we're just like, that is so awesome. We have to make sure to put her back in the game. So we found a nice spot for her as one of Azmodan's lieutenants. She's kind of like, so you guys do have an effect on what we do. She's a little bit like Belial in that she likes to psychologically torment the player, likes to taunt him, likes to get under his skin. Azmodan is different than this. Azmodan's all about raw, unbridled power. In these concepts that you're going to see over the next minute or so, this is our visual development of Azmodan. We wanted to show his raw power. We wanted to show his royalty. He's got a crown in this one that turns into like bony protrusions on his head in this shot. We really wanted to show, I mean, he basically ruled hell for 300 years after the Dark Exile. So we wanted to show his power, we wanted to show his royalty, but on top of everything else, we wanted to show his greed and avarice and his basically being ostentatious. He's got like all this gold on him. He's got all this, you know, these trappings of greed and gilding. So let's talk about Azmodan as a personality. Like I said, he's not into deceit. He's not into hiding. As a matter of fact, from the very beginning of the act, you know exactly where he is. You just can't get to him. He's behind the demon invasion that Deckard Cain has been warning everybody about for 20 years. And you can't get much more out in the open than spearheading a demon invasion. As you guys saw in the opening ceremony, we showed the cinematic that has him confronting Leah, and he's about 2 steps ahead of the player. He knows that you're coming for him. But even more than that, he knows about the Black Soul Stone. Now, I'm sure you all have questions about what the Black Soul Stone is, but let's just suffice it to say that the Black Soul Stone is a very powerful artifact that you're going to use to capture and destroy him. But he knows that if he gets his hands on the Black Soul Stone, he will be able to wield more power than any Lord of Hell has ever wielded before. The fact that he knows this is bad news, and it's quite a surprise to the player when you find out. So obviously, you need to get your hands on this artifact first and keep it from him. And lastly, and possibly most importantly, Azmodan here is the last Lord of Hell. You've defeated Belial, you've defeated all the other Lords of Hell in the other games, so that means that there are no more Lords of Hell. The burning hells are wiped out. There's no one left to influence or unduly corrupt Sanctuary. Once Azmodan is defeated, all evil will be gone forever. At least that's the theory. And then there'll be happiness and rainbows for everybody. Kevin? Oh, I'm sorry, Chris.
Oh, that is me. Guys, a little earlier we were talking about relooking at different parts of the continuity of Sanctuary, and I think word of one of the specific kind of changes we're running with. Did it get out a while ago?
It's kind of hinted at in the beta.
Totally. Brain just is not working this morning. So
Thoroughly.
in the beta, you can kind of tell we have given the Dark Wanderer from Diablo II, we've given him an identity. And I wanted to talk a little bit about why, right? Again, I know that retcons and things like that can really piss people off. And we are very, very sensitive to that, right? We don't put anybody off. We want you guys to enjoy these ideas, as it turns out. It would be wonderful if everybody just woo-hoo. But we know from time to time things fall out, and I wanted to address the Dark Wanderer issue. The reason we gave this guy an identity, well, I'll give you a weird one right off the top of my head. I'm not announcing anything, by the way, as I get into this, but let's say theoretically, I swear to you, I'm not announcing anything. If you were theoretically going to try to tell the story of Diablo in a different media type, if you're going to try and novelize Diablo, or do a movie of Diablo, or do a mini-series, wouldn't a Game of Thrones
Don't
mini-series
start
of
live
Diablo be
blogging that.
mega?
He's not announcing anything.
I'm not announcing a damn thing, but I'm announcing loudly that I want it all. Is there any Hollywood people in the audience? Come and talk to Leonard. So, if you're attempting to tell this story, right, outside of the bounds of the game series as it stands, this guy's the guy. He is the hero from Diablo 1 who selflessly took, Diablo's power into himself, and now thus tortured, crossing the wastelands, is now trying to travel to the east to get rid of this evil demon. Of course, the demon inside him wants to have, a party with his brothers. So it's potentially, I don't know, an interesting story. I don't know if you wanted to do a mini-series or a movie or something. So even at that level, I was very keen to, like, guys, we have to answer this question. It's going to be awkward. Like, wait a minute, I killed Diablo with my rogue. Well, the Dark Wanderer clearly is male, so it's like already we were, forcing a solution on this thing. So again, I just wanted to address the issue. In particular, the identity we gave him is Leoric's oldest son, Aiden. The idea is that Leoric had two boys. Albric, the young one, he doesn't end well. Well, hell, none of them end well. Boy, Leoric's family just gets worked. But the idea kind of is, if memory serves, is that Aiden, as Leoric is falling to darkness, as he's kind of going nuts, he's possessed by Diablo shortly before the events of Diablo 1, and he sends Lochdanan and the armies of Condorus north to Westmarch, which is actually kind of like an allied kingdom, really. His war is madness, right? He's just trying to, Diablo, through him, is trying to get rid of anyone that would be able to stand against him as he corrupts his town. So essentially the hook is, Aiden, always trying to please his dad, which is maybe a played out theme, I get it. But he goes north with the armies, and he is obviously absent for the events of leading to Diablo 1, and ultimately, if you were telling this thing as a film or whatever, you pick up your story as he comes home, like, where's Dad? He went batshit crazy and he's a skeleton. Well, where's my little brother? Well, we think the Archbishop took him down under the old church there. Draw your own conclusions, right? So it's a nice, it's a really nice way of, Lazarus. It's actually a really nice through line, right? So again, that was our thinking. It's a character with immediate, total emotional investment in these events, and it makes a real nice story. So again, I just want to get out in front of it and address it. We know that it's a little jarring, right? But we felt very strongly that it just really works. It makes the universe better. Most of the time, sometimes mistakes happen in terms of lore, right? I've had a couple. Out of something roughly like 10,000 ideas, sometimes you're gonna get like 5 of them wrong. I'm kidding. Couldn't possibly be that many. 10,000, not the 5. So, just saying, right? Sometimes things fall out of place, but for the most part, when you see retcons and changes like this, it is for a very good reason. It's typically, I'd say very thought out, but let's just say thought out. So just wanted to explain that to you guys and get that right out there in front of it all. Certainly, if you guys have questions about that during the Q&A, we'll do our best to answer those.
Okay, World of Sanctuary. This is very much a switching of gears. It's not just going to be concept art. Let's show you some in-game stuff, and I'm going to show you 3 brand new areas today that you haven't seen before. 3 new zones from Diablo III. Now, when I said that's not just concept art, of course it starts with concept art. But don't worry, there's videos coming at the end of these segments, each of them. So CALDEUM is the major trading center of the world. This is the focus of, it's the Rome of its time. It's where everything from the east, the west, the north, and the south comes through. It's that central portal. Now, just a really brief history of CALDEUM. Leonard already mentioned that there's a big refugee crisis here, and BELIAL is obviously behind it, and you know that, but you don't know how, when, where, and why. This city had 3 major groups in it. They had the Zakarum priesthood, it had the big merchant families, and it had the Ishari Sanctum, which is the major wizard school. In fact, the wizards from Diablo III studied here for some time. These groups are always vying for power, and recently Emperor Hakan the founder of this empire, sort of brought them all under his boot and finally made this city more organized, and since then it's grown even more powerful and more wealthy. So while they're always still trying to vie for power, Hakan did help a lot. However, Hakan died under mysterious circumstances, and we're going to get to that in a second. And recently, the child Emperor Hakan II has taken power, and this poor kid's just trying to survive until adulthood so that he can take over properly. And I'll explain a little more about that when we get to the people of CALDEUM. Let's take a look at some of the areas. All right, so this is one of the trading passes that comes in from the west, and it's an overlook of the city, so you can see CALDEUM there below. Here's one of the central bazaars. A tavern. Now, the society, and we're going to show a bunch of people in a second, is very stratified. In fact, literally, the rich people live above in this sort of cloud city-like approach, these massive platforms above the poor people. This is actually a shot of the throne room, and you can see tiny little Emperor Hakan II there, and some of his Imperial Guard. You do get to meet Emperor Hakan and talk to him and hopefully help him out. So this is that child emperor, and this poor kid, it's not a patrilineal society. Emperor Hakan II was found through a Zakarum ritual, and they hired the Iron Wolves, the mercenary company from Diablo II. It makes an appearance here again. The Zakarum worked with the Iron Wolves to find this kid, make sure the merchant houses and the Ishari Sanctum don't take control of him or kill him and try to put their own person in there. So the Iron Wolves, we'll take a shot here of a Zakarum priest in his fancy CALDEUM gear and an Iron Wolf on the left. They've become sort of the Emperor's personal guard, and they're helping him in a sort of regency thing. In fact, Ashira is the leader of those guards. However, the Iron Wolves have recently been kicked out of the palace. The Emperor ordered them out and replaced them with these new Imperial Guards. These is the guys in purple you saw in the throne room. They won't let anyone see him anymore. They won't let Ashira near the gate. So she's out there trying to help the refugees, wondering whether she should still stick around the city, if she can help that kid, what else she can do. And that's sort of the situation when the player arrives. All right, here's some more people of CALDEUM. This is just some of the concept art. You can see there's some very cool variations, a lot of nice costumes. Some of the best costumes in the entire game can be found in CALDEUM. Really cool character art. So the DAHLGUR OASIS. This is the central farming region. It's where most of the water comes from the city, and this is the area, clicker. This is the area that allowed this little trading outpost to become the grand city. Without this source of water, without this massive oasis, CALDEUM would not be what it is today. So it's very important. Legend has it that this mysterious desert prophet named DAHLGUR came in from the wastes, took the city fathers of this little trading town out to the oasis and showed them this source so that they could grow. He promised, he wanted them to name it after him, and then he wandered back in the waste, never to be seen again. No one knows if that's a legend or not. So let's take a look at the DAHLGUR OASIS. Here's our female monk roaming through here. BELIAL's forces are all over this area, and many of the refugees came from here, so the water, is a big problem, and people are starting to starve because no farming is happening. Watch for the exploding plants. The fauna is fun here. Flora and fauna. Belial Snake Man. Not really a meaningful match for the female monk. So this is a really cool area contrast-wise from the super harsh deserts you're going to see in this region as well. You know, it's quite beautiful, but it's also very corrupted right now, so it's a great area for that. Moving on. The Archives of Zoltun KULLE. So this is our teaser area for today. Zoltun KULLE is a new character we've created, and he's actually one of the original Haradrim with Jared Kane and what's the guy that took over Mephisto? Telrasha, thank you. They founded the Haradrim, and they are the ones that tracked down the original Lords of Hell. I'm not going to tell you much more about Zoltun KULLE, except he turned bad, and he turned bad fast and hard. He became the most dangerous man in the world, to the point where the other Haradrim and the wizard and the sorcerers, everybody got together to try to kill this guy. Turns out they could not kill him. Somehow he had gotten immortality. The best they could do was to cut him in half, bury his head with runes and guardians in one part of the desert, and put his body in an alternate dimension in a vain attempt to try to keep this guy from not coming back together and ruining everything. He's that powerful. So we showed a little bit of this, these sort of ruins that we had in BlizzCon 2009. Just these little side dungeons, all sandy and collapsed. It looks like this, but sort of ruined, and the magic was all broken. You get to explore the other archives, which for hundreds of years have sat undisturbed, still, you know, sort of pregnant with the power of Zoltun KULLE. So let's take a look at that. This is just a teaser. I'm not going to show you any of the monsters there. I'm not going to tell you why you're there or what you're going to see, but it's again the female monk, and this time she has the scoundrel follower with her. This is just the entryway.
Do you think KULLE ever cracked a smile when he was alive? Seems to be a grim sort.
Even the cruelest man finds something to give him joy.
Yeah, what gives Zoltun KULLE joy is not good. Ooh, ominous. Thus concludes a planned part of the lore panel today, so please try to embarrass us up here on stage with questions we can't answer. No release date questions. Don't waste your question.
I have a question about a character from Diablo 1, Adria. When you went back to Tristram in Diablo 2, I couldn't find any evidence that she had died with the people, and I was wondering if she was going to make some sort of appearance in Diablo 3, whether it was just a passing thing or she would show up herself.
Well, if you've played the beta, she's Leah's mother. And when you go back, when you're running around Old Tristram with Leah, she talks about how the fact that her mother died and she was raised by Deckard Cain. So she obviously lived a little bit beyond the destruction of Tristram. You'll have to play the game to find out more about what actually happened to her. But, you know, in the beta, we talk about how she died.
Thanks.
How you doing? Real quick, I just wanted to ask about one piece of concept art that I saw a while back. It looks like two angels, and one angel is like powering up, and it looks like Tyrael cowering back. And I was wondering if one of two things: either can an angel fall and become a demon, and also, do angels have separate forms, maybe when they're about to attack somebody, that would explain the change that we see in that piece?
Unfortunately, I don't know the exact piece of concept art you're referring to. It wasn't in our show today, was it?
No.
Yeah, okay. So I don't know exactly what you're referring to, but to try to answer it more broadly, can angels fall and become demons? I don't want to get too precise in that. I don't think that's the case. But take a look at Iswal, who's the corrupted angel from Diablo 2. And here's some free lore. He's going to appear in Diablo 3 again. There you go. There's your reveal. How, where, when, and why again? Not saying.
Well, the trick of it, I think if you state it, can angels become demons? I would say no, but they can certainly fall, and they can certainly go very dark, and they can certainly be warped. But they're just innately other than each other. You know, like they're just not the same thing at all. Another thing to consider, and Book of Cain kind of gets into this, angels are light and sound. Right? They do not have any physicality whatsoever, right? The trick to this thing is, well, they look human, they're in armor. Like, well, that's convenient for us so that we know who's who and whatever. But ultimately, the heart of the high heavens is this thing called the crystal arch. It is a massive spire. Like we said earlier, the world stone may in fact be like the eye of Anu, right? The eye of this kind of a primordial, godlike creature. Well, the crystal arch is rumored to be his spine, right? That when the Big Bang hit, and these, primordial, creatures exploded and the universe was birthed. The crystal arch kind of spins up and out into the dark, and over time kind of grows and really becomes the physical place of the high heavens. Angels are birthed from the arch. It hums with sound and music and power, right? And angels really, like the wings, actually, the angels' wings, that's actually them, right? The armor is just for purposes of building a world and being able to interact with these characters, right? That's helpful to us, but imagine Diablo angels is really actually more of the wings, which is funky, but it's true. They're sound and light given form. What was the question?
I saw this picture of an angel, and he turned into like a badass thing with fire coming out of him, and I thought it was Imperious and Tyrael fighting.
Huh. I don't know the image.
Okay.
Maybe
Sounds
they were
good.
just putting on a play. I don't know.
All right. Thanks.
Hi, so I've been playing Diablo 3 beta. I got in through the invite, and I happened to pick up a piece of lore that interested me. It's concerning Leah. She has a mother, Adria, which is the witch from Diablo 1. I happened to find some information who her father was. Would you guys confirm that?
In the beta?
Yeah.
No, all Leah says about her father is that he went off to war and never came back. So, as far as she knows, he's dead. Who knows?
Well, there was some hinting at who the father was, and I don't know. I don't want to spoil anything, but may I say?
Neither do we. So yeah, we're not gonna, who knows, right? But it may, in fact, play out as, a significant, thing down the road. We shall see.
We will neither confirm nor deny that blah, blah, blah.
I'm also playing through the beta, and one of the possible encounters is actually finding the corpse of Wariv from Diablo 2. And two questions. One, why did you kill Wariv and not Geed?
Probably because Geed is so very, very beloved by all fans of all time. And who says we didn't kill Geed? Who knows? Where is Geed? Interesting question.
Well, that's my second question. Are a bunch of Diablo 2 characters going to be sort of stratified throughout the whole campaign in sort of chance encounters, or will any of them have a major role in the story?
You learn. It's more hints than confirmation. Some of them, you find out exactly what happens to. Other ones are hinted at. Some aren't mentioned at all. So we've done some of it, not all of it, and I'd probably want to save most of it for that. I could mention one thing, since I told a journalist yesterday, I might as well tell you guys that an apprentice of the Necromancer from Diablo 2, you can meet him in the Stinging Winds, which is the region that we showed in 2009's BlizzCon. So he appears in 2 different possible events in that area. I look forward to you guys finding them and seeing what hints are in there.
Hi. So at the end of Diablo 2 expansion, Tyrael kind of throws his sword and destroys the World Stone, which seems like a really huge event. Does that have any implications on Sanctuary, like noticeable? I imagine it'll come out throughout the game, so I don't really want any spoilers, but will we be able to see that sort of thing throughout the game?
The answer is yes. The answer is yes. Yeah, the destruction of the World Stone, or was it, is a huge moment in the universe of Diablo, right? I guess the question would be, can you destroy a World Stone? I know what we saw, but
right, I mean,
it's just possible.
We've mentioned before that the World Stone was one of the things that was suppressing the power in humanity, their sort of natural birthright of being Nephilim, so it's broken now. What does that mean?
What does it mean for mankind? What does it mean relative to the eternal conflict? Can you destroy this thing? Or, especially if you consider it exists at the heart of creation, right? And it was kind of hijacked, and so the nature of its physicality there within Mount Arreat, does it exist on multiple, these are all questions that are very, very significant.
We answer many of those questions, but not all of them, and it's all very deliberate, and, you'll more to come.
Well, something that we even talked about this morning is that, the World Stone kept large numbers of angels and demons from coming to Sanctuary. So now that it's gone, people were wondering why the invasion hasn't happened, and finally, when you run into Azmodan, the demon invasion is finally happening. So that's at least one way that it's definitely infecting Sanctuary.
Yeah, and Azmodan's not an idiot. He's seen what's happened to all of his brethren, and he knows how dangerous humans are, so he's trying to be careful and come with overwhelming force.
It's funny, Azmodan's invasion actually happened like 15 years ago, but he forgot his keys at home and they had to turn around and go back. That was terrible.
Can we get a courtesy laugh for him?
Thank you.
Hey, I just want to ask, you're talking a lot about the high heavens, the burning hells. Does the necromancer god Tragul factor at all into the story of Diablo 3 or any upcoming tie-ins? And if I could add another question to that, does he have any effect on Ethereal's ability to see the future?
Okay, so Tragul was last seen in the Sin War trilogy. And he is the father. For those of you who don't know, he's sort of this world protector dragon. He might be a living constellation. He might be a personification of, the past, present, and future of humanity. So he's a mysterious character. He is the founder of the Necromancer Order, and he's very concerned with balance. He is not around anymore. After he set his necromancers on the path, Rathma was their founder, and he, set them on their path. He's gone. We don't say where, and that's sort of one of the mysteries of the universe that's out there right now.
And does he really? Nope. Okay.
Hi. When we killed the two lesser evils in Diablo 2, they didn't actually have like a soul stone, so would they still be around?
That's very interesting.
I would say I wouldn't. Let's try that again. I wouldn't leave them lying around. That'd be dangerous.
I urge you to play.
Picking up a Lord of Hell.
You got to play Diablo 3. You're going to learn so much when you play that game. You should try it out.
Thank you.
You are totally not satisfied with that answer.
Hey guys, I had a quick question. In the cinematics for Diablo 3, you see like the smoking remains of a mountain and this demonic horde pouring forth from the bowels of it. Is that mountain the shattered remains of Mount Arreat after the World Stone was broken?
Yes.
And why at that particular point are they choosing to invade from?
I would say, boy, have we even discussed, there's a logical one that pops into my head. I don't even know if we've discussed it because it's always just been, it just seemed obvious, but if the World Stone just went up or whatever happened to it, this is the place between the worlds where, the fabric of reality is weakest. So if you're going to invade, right, it's kind of the spot where, you can push a lot of demons through, right? So, I don't know.
No, that's actually pretty much as far as we've bothered discussing it is, yeah, exactly that. And we haven't gone to a
and it looks bitchin'.
scientific analysis of why exactly there. But yeah, it's cool. How's that sound?
Sounds Sounds good enough to me. Thank you.
Hey guys, I have a two-part question for Kevin. So, why are you so devilishly handsome? And
I just asked him that this morning.
yeah,
I've been waiting for the softball questions. Thank you.
yeah, no problem. And the second part is the witch doctor. Which tribe does he come from? What's the name of it?
Now you're killing me. Is it the Seven Stones?
I don't know.
We'd have to look.
The answer to the first question, I can do that one though. It's skin cream. You got to look after your skin.
You can actually. There's a web story about it, and Abd al-Hazir visited his tribe. So the tribe that he goes to is actually the witch doctor's tribe.
You remember that character's name, but you don't remember the witch doctor tribe name?
He reads a lot of lore for us in the game, so I carefully remember him.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. You just, I was watching some of the videos there about environments, and I was just wondering that the environments look to be really detailed, and I was just wondering whether they're still randomized or not.
Yes, they are. So it's a little different than it was in Diablo 2 in that the exterior zones, the outside ones, the non-dungeons, don't have randomized edges. Those are set, and as a result, they can look a lot cooler. What we have is giant sort of squares of content in the middle that switch out. So you could walk through, and one time there's a little encampment, and it's full of snake men, and you kill them, and you get a lore, and it's like Belial's orders, and you learn a little more about the story. The next time you go, it's the entrance to a temple, and inside is a treasure hunter, and he's got the Idol of Ragnar, and then you've got a 30-minute dungeon underneath, and the time after that, it's one of ZOLTUN KULLE's archives. So we do it sort of that way. And other time you could walk through and it's just empty desert. So that's where a lot of the randomness comes. And the way that the main quest objectives are set up, you have to be exploring a zone to find that. And as you do, you will run across all of these other random events.
And the dungeons are still completely random like they were in D2.
Thank you.
Hello, so after what you said, I would like to know where is my hero of Diablo 1?
We're going to get through this, guys. We're going to be all right.
Okay, if I remember correctly, and all of you just correct me if I'm wrong here, I believe that we are implying that Bloodraven is the rogue from Diablo 1. So the heroes of Diablo 1 all became corrupted, and we reference the sorcerer later, I think in Act 2. Forget exactly where. You guys know more than me, I don't know. There's some guy. And then we do not explain what happens to all of the heroes from Diablo 2, and some of them are referenced and some of them aren't. So that's where we're at with the characters themselves.
So, I mean, even during Diablo 2, it was established that the warrior from Diablo 1 was the Dark Wanderer. So we're just kind of adding on top of that.
We've clarified his background and specifically tied him to Leoric and the events of Tristram.
Hey guys, I always liked the fact that in Diablo 2 some of the equipable items had kind of a direct connection to the lore, such as Azarath and so forth. And I was wondering if any of the loot in Diablo 3 might have kind of a direct connection to the lore that might make it in the player's eyes something I really need to have. And then also really quickly too, one of my favorite NPCs was Ormus in Diablo 2, and I was wondering if he might have a less ratty life making an appearance in Diablo 3.
On the item question, absolutely there is major lore tie-ins all over the place. Like most of the legendary items have a little piece of lore on their actual like mouse over tooltip as well, adding quite a bit of depth to the world. There's many references to existing Diablo lore, there's many hints at new Diablo lore, and of course we have, separate from the item system, all these lore books in the game, quite a number of them, many of them narrated by either Deckard Cain, sort of the historian of our world, and Abd al-Hazir, who's this great traveler character who narrates much of the other ones. As for Ormus,
all right, here's a big reveal. Ormus sadly didn't make it to the final game. He actually was in the game for a while, so that means we have a model for him. So I put my money on him showing up again somewhere.
Thank you.
We have time for a few more questions.
Okay, you just mentioned about the Diablo 1 heroes were going to be Blood Raven in Diablo 2. So I'm wondering, is the Summoner also the hero from Diablo 1?
Well, I'm just the summoner, meaning
The guy from, help us out here. What's the area that he's in? Arcane Sanctuary, right, thank you.
wasn't that was that Horizon?
Man, we're doing great.
Yeah, the question, the summoner was supposed to be the hero, yeah, from Diablo 1. I was just, what I was asking when you asked the question without the mic was, did we confirm that or did we hint at it? I think we confirmed it. So, yeah, I think.
That was the intent. I don't, hopefully it came across.
Good thing I'm manning a lore panel.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
He kind of hinted at my question, which was whether there was a relationship between Horizon and, I forgot his name, the new guy, the new Herodic sage that you are introducing.
Zoltun Cool?
Yes. And so I'll also include a little thing. Is there a lore reason that Asmodon is sewn up the way those one demons that explode are?
No, it was just one of those artistic concepts that we thought looked really cool and really kind of just added to his look. There was not really a lore reason behind it. Horizon is a totally different, he has nothing to do with the Herodrum. He was, I don't know if you guys, won't get too deep into it, but him and his brother were mages, and they ended up this big, huge mage battle that almost decimated the known world at one point in time. So he had a totally different history from the Herodrum, and Zoltun Cool was a dark Herodrum, so they're completely different.
But they are certainly similar kinds of characters, you know, just very powerful wizards that went nuts and, you know, have subterranean, you know, bachelor pads, you know.
Thank you.
Hi, on the theme of revisiting story elements from the previous games, finding out what happened to them, what about the locations like Kurast and Lutgulain? Will we see them again?
No, it's almost completely new areas in this game. Most of the previous Diablo game references is we deliberately set the start of the game in New Tristram, which is across this little river from Old Tristram, because we wanted to, it's been, 10 or 11 years now since Diablo 2 came out. We wanted to sort of set that tone and get people back into it, and for people who had never played before, they sort of get to experience some of that history with the Skeleton King being your first boss, etc., to get that back in. But while we do go back to, Kyrgyzstan and some of the other areas, we wanted to show new things. Of course, Ariat being another exception to that later, that's where the demon army's coming from, but the area's changed so much that it might as well be a new area. Certainly we talked about, bringing a lot of those areas back, but we decided on brand new things instead. We love to sort of expand the world and show you new things whenever we can.
Thank you.
We have time for one last question.
Hi. My question is concerning the vessel of Diablo, because as far as I have read, neither Duriel and Dariel had a vessel, and no other lesser demons had a vessel, and Diablo even made an appearance in the Sin Wars without a vessel. So why does he want a vessel? What is he needed for?
Define vessel.
A human.
Soul stones?
No, the human that he takes possession of.
Right.
The king's sons. First the younger one and then the old one.
Right. So initially the evils, the three prime ones, were exiled. They were overthrown by the lesser evils, and they were thrown to Earth. They lost Sanctuary. They lost a ton of their power when they did that, and that allowed the Herodrum, not that the Herodrum were weak themselves, but that allowed the Herodrum to be able to find a way to capture them and hold them. So Diablo at the time of Diablo 1 is still very weak. He's got this essence and he's got these insidious plans, and it's kind of slow moving. He's got to take over a kid because he tried to do the orc and he couldn't quite do it, and by the end he sort of tricked the warrior into taking the soul stones to get a more powerful vessel. Essentially he's just still building his power, and he's not strong enough to just show up as Diablo yet, though he does get that strong over the course of the games.
I think you can argue just technically that while the World Stone was up and doing its thing, which suppresses, angels and demons really to some degree, that most of these evils or whatever would have to be anchored in some kind of mortal form to possess them or whatever, really just to be anchored in this reality. Although, with the World Stone blown to bits, all bets are off. You know what I mean? So these guys, very mega level, can probably just walk right in,
Thank you.
Let's please give our panelists a big round of applause for their time.
Thanks for coming, guys.
Coming up next on the